Good evening, everyone. This hearing's about to get started. It's about to open up. My name is Jonathan Gumwalk, and I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. And Cerise Waters is the clerk for this hearing. Cerise Waters, is the clerk for this hearing. This hearing is being recorded, and the sign-in sheet is on the table on the side of the room. Please be sure to sign in for our records, and so that if necessary, we can contact you in the future regarding the item you're here for. This public hearing is being held to consider 9 appeals from property owners that were assessed fines for excessive or illegal pruning of trees, for not planting a replacement tree, or for illegally removing a tree. They are order number 202515, to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1367 14th Avenue. Order number 202516, to consider the removal of 5 street trees with replacements in preparation for the Paloux Avenue Street Improvement Project adjacent to 1501 Quint Street. Order number 202517, to consider the removal of 4 street trees with replacement in the Sunset Boulevard median across from 1691 37th Avenue. Order number 202519, to consider the removal and transplanting of 23 street trees with replacements adjacent to 1925 and 1940 Evans Avenue due to major grade changes that need to be made to the road between Toland and Selby. Order number 202520, to consider the removal of 8 street trees with replacement adjacent to 5 properties along Gary Boulevard between Scott Street and Gough Street. Order number 202521, to consider the removal of 9 significant trees on private property with replacement by St. Francis Homes Association. Order number 202522, to consider the removal of 4 street trees with replacement adjacent to 833 Bryant Street. Order number 202523, to consider the removal of 12 street trees with replacements adjacent to 35 Division Street /2 Henry Adams. And order number 202524, to consider the removal of 1 street tree with replacement adjacent to 4363 26th Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works to make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the Department will notify you of those determinations. Therefore, if you want to be notified, please sign in. The hearing will proceed as follows for each case. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the property owner or appellant to speak. Then any member of the public or witness who wants to speak. Then the department, if the department would like to address any comments, make a rebuttal. And then the property owner or appellant again, if that person has any rebuttals as well. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers. When you hear the first bell, it means the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. A louder second bell will signal that the time is up. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. If I feel a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing, and I'd like to begin first with order number 202515, to consider removal of 1 street tree with replacement adjacent to 1367 14th Avenue.
Hi, can someone hear me on the phone?
Yes, we hear you.
Thank you.
All right, can you just stay tight while Public Works makes its presentation first, please? Thank
Yes,
you.
I had an accommodation request. If we could hear the 1501 street trees first. I'm having some health issues and would appreciate that item going first.
This is 1501 Quint Street.
Correct.
Sure, if no one has any objections to that, I don't have any objections. We'd be glad to accommodate you.
Thank
Just give us a second while I guess Public Works brings out the documentation for that. Thank you. Public Works, please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Stacy. I represent Bureau of Urban Forestry this evening. I'm an urban forestry inspector for the Bureau. I just want to give a brief, short presentation of comments before we speak about 1501 Quint. If the caller can spare me just a few minutes, please.
Of course.
So again, my name's Sarah Stacy. I'm with Bureau of Urban Forestry. We have two things I want to kind of point out as to what provides guidance for our decisions that we make at the staff level as far as what we deny and approve for tree removals. The first is the Urban Forestry Ordinance, which is Article 16 of the Public Works Code. And it was enacted to protect and realize the optimum public benefits of trees and as important green infrastructure. And then second here on the slide is Goal 1 of the Public Works Strategic Plan, which is to provide a safe, clean, and green infrastructure to the public right-of-way. Safe being that we want to remove hazardous trees, and green, that we want to preserve those trees that are healthy and mature and allow them to live kind of their full life and provide all the benefits we expect from the urban forestry. To help us green San Francisco and to help us battle climate change. So our team of inspectors, we are all certified arborists, and to meet these goals, our objective when reviewing removal applications is to protect healthy, vigorous trees and to deny the removals of trees in good condition. We generally would approve applications for removal of trees found to be dead, diseased, in poor condition because of decline, and in cases where they pose a risk to the public safety and risk cannot be mitigated by pruning or other corrective means. So at the time of inspection, we are looking for signs of dieback, decay, reduced vigor, past failure occurrences, and we consider the species, its age, and its reaction and response to past injuries, and we evaluate the structure of the tree for any likelihood of failure. So that's all our job as an inspector and how we make the decision at the staff level. Now, several of the projects tonight for review are construction-related projects. Several of them our department, our Bureau of Urban Forestry, we have approved. Generally, for construction projects, we want to see trees preserved and kept and the construction to work around them. As I've stated, and we want to recognize, trees are important green infrastructure asset that we want to protect for the city. That being said, these construction projects in which we've approved trees for removal, it's the case that most of them severe grading changes will impact the health of the trees, and that's why we made the approvals. So I'll begin. We're going to shift to 1501 Quint Street. This is order number 202516. Again, my name's Sarah Stacy with Urban Forestry. This is to consider the removal of 5 street trees with replacement in preparation for the Paloux Avenue Street Improvement Project adjacent to 1501 Quint Street. Quint will be closed to traffic and 10 replacement trees will be planted in the newly formed sidewalk. This will require placing the pedestrian sidewalk closer to the subject property. Our Bureau of Urban Forestry, we approved the removal and the public protested. This is the current site, and those 5 arrows on the slide indicate the trees that were posted for removal in which we received the public protest for. They're smaller fruit trees. They are in the public right-of-way, though they are behind a fence that the property owner has placed here within the public right-of-way. So they appear to be private, but they are within the public right-of-way. This is from our map viewer to show you the parcel, and the width of the public right-of-way is 15 feet on both sides of Quint there, indicated by those lines. And it goes right up to the property. So that's measured from the face of curb to the property, that 15 feet. And that 15 feet is shown here in this slide. Again, from the face of the curb, basically to the edge of the physical property. So you'll see those trees in the slide are within the public right-of-way. A project representative should be here to provide a little bit better explanation, but basically, I'm going to read this. As part of the Paloux Avenue Streetscape Improvement Project, we will be transforming the five-way intersection at Quint Street, Silver Avenue, and Paloux Avenue, which has been a confusing point of convergence for drivers and pedestrians, into a four-way intersection to minimize confusion, slow traffic, and prevent vehicular and pedestrian accidents. So again, part of our strategic plan to make a safer public right-of-way, we're making these capital improvements. So they're seeking to find a solution for this intersection that has been the community's highest priority for the project. So they propose to create a four-way intersection. The project will convert the southern portion of Quint Street, Paloux Avenue, into a cul-de-sac with new landscaping, curb ramps, and wider sidewalk, while creating an area more inviting to public gatherings. No parking will be allowed along the perimeter. And kind of where you see the horseshoe to the south of the gray section of road, which is Paloux, that's where the street will be closed. And the improvement made there to the public right-of-way. These next few slides are just images of the trees that we approved for.
Is there a way I could see the slides? Are they online?
I don't know if they would be still available online. If the posting period has ended, we would have, I think, pulled those from the website.
However, we can make arrangements to get them to you. If you submit an email address or something of the sort, I guess we could email them to you.
I'm surprised they weren't emailed already. I've submitted many emails about this.
You might have had to have requested them directly, sir.
Okay, well, that would be nice.
All right, thank you. You may resume.
These are photos of the street trees that Bureau of Urban Forestry approved for removal. They're all in generally, fair, good condition. We approve them again for the construction and the scope of work that pushes all the way up to the edge of this private property. These are bronze loquat trees, so all the trees within this stretch of the public right-of-way, what we consider planted on the property side of the public right-of-way, they're all fruit trees. So we have two of the loquats, 2 apples, 3 apples, and these are just photos of the tree. There's really nothing I can point out here. They're in good, fair condition. They don't have any major deficiencies or defects. Again, Buff, we approve them because of the proposed scope of work, the construction impact, and the design for that to be carried out. The pedestrian flow of traffic is basically pushed all the way to the edge of the private property, and you can see that alignment with the crosswalk and how that would cross Paloux. But I believe a few representatives are here from the project management team and can speak a little bit more about the proposed design and
Yes, can we have the project
Project.
representatives speak up, please? Please introduce yourselves, state your names for the record, and the company you're representing.
I'm Marcy Camacho. I'm the project manager for the Paloux Streetscape, and this is Felipe.
Hi, good evening. My name is Felipe Robles. I'm the SFMTA lead on this project.
Thank you.
I just want to pull up 2 slides as I talk through the transportation background of the project. I'll try to keep this brief for everyone. Just very quickly, project goals were kind of threefold. We wanted to improve safety for people walking in the neighborhood along the Paloux corridor. We also wanted to install some traffic calming measures. We heard a lot about speeding traffic on Paloux, people taking turns very quickly, people not yielding to pedestrians, and also a lot of what we call exhibition driving, basically people doing donuts in these large intersections along the corridor. And thirdly, as other staff can attest, we did want to improve the landscape features along the corridor. And for some additional citywide context, the Paloux corridor at the time that we were doing the outreach of this project was part of the Vision Zero high injury network, which basically means it's not a great place to walk. I'm not going to spend too much time here. Previously approved designs by the MTA board include about 10 corner bulbs, 15 medians, again, getting to improving conditions for people walking and driving through the neighborhood, spanning the entire stretch of Paloux between Crisp and Industrial. Getting to this intersection specifically, this shows what the intersection looked like in existing conditions. I took this picture from the southwest corner of the intersection, and you can see that if you're walking along the south side of Paloux and you want to cross the Silver Quint intersection, it's a really long crossing. And getting back to one of the original goals of the project, making things better and safer for people walking was something that we heard from the community. And as you can see in the picture, to cross, you basically have to make a V-shaped crossing and cross two different streets. It's about 140 feet long, and it's not that great of a place to walk if you're trying to get to the park a block away, or trying to get to the community garden also a block away. The proposal that we got approved by the SFMTA board it's the same slide that we just saw previously with Ms. Stacy. And it includes closing Quint to traffic and opening that part of the intersection up to people walking and opening it up to additional landscaping in the area. And as you can see, the street crossing across Silver gets dramatically shorter, cutting about 100 feet of required crossing distance, making it much better for families and everyone trying to use the crossing.
Sir, I have a question. So on the Quint, you say close it off. I mean, how is that shown on this slide? It just says stop, like it's still basically an intersection, it looks like to me.
So as pointed out before, that kind of horseshoe-looking area with the landscaping, that's the part of Quint Street that will have, we're calling it a cul-de-sac. Basically, the street will be, a sidewalk will be built.
All right, where's the horseshoe exactly? I'm not too clear.
So you're driving down Quint, and this is the horseshoe, so this becomes a cul-de-sac.
I see.
So you no longer drive, through the five-way, it becomes a four-way because the street stops.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, got it. Thank you.
So just to recap quickly the benefits of this design, it makes it a much easier four-leg intersection for anyone driving through, and also dramatically shortens the pedestrian crossings. And those are basically the main things that we heard from the community in the first place that they wanted to see at this intersection.
And this is an MTA project, SFMTA project?
No, it's a 2011 streetscape bond project, and several other agencies joined, like PUC Sewer, Paving, Walk First, Vision Zero joined. So there's a lot of team members and agencies that have contributed to it. We ourselves held 5 community meetings, and before us, the Bayview had two community meetings. And the people at the time, 2 things they were talking about was really confusing and dangerous was the five-way intersection here. So we heard that repeatedly through.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the property owner or appellant, sir, you can now join us via telephone. Please state your name for the record.
I'm not the property owner. Is there somebody else on the line?
No, if you're the appellant, that works as well. Just state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes, sir, to speak.
Hi, my name is Zach Parnazes. I respectfully request additional time because I'm having some speech issues today. Could I be given an extra minute, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I have been struggling very hard to be included in this process as a person with disability. I emailed DPW on November 5th, December 12th, December 16th, December 19th, trying to get a call-in number. Eventually, December 20, Nancy Soraya said I would get a call-in number before the meeting. That didn't happen. I had to email again on January 17th, get a call-in number. All the pictures for these trees heard today were removed on the public website that I had to fight for a year to get DPW to make for people with disabilities. The pictures were removed without notice to me or other disabled people, so we can't participate fully. No one told me about the slides that I needed to request, and that is another serious access issue to be included in the decisions today. These are just a couple examples of many ADA disability access problems with this procedure. I did message about these trees. They're fruit trees, beautiful fruit trees, and apple and loquat with no health problems, as DPW states. I think it's really strange the city is paying money to cut down healthy fruit trees because they try to claim they're dangerous. Construction can be done to work with and around the trees instead of destroying our healthy trees in the city.
Go ahead, sir.
I would love to discuss more about the other trees today, but they're all removed from the website. I wish I could make comments on the slides, but I don't have access to them. So I cannot say much more today in defense of my case. I urge DPW directors and people to do a better job of including people with disabilities. My name is Zach Karnazes, Karnazes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. You may stay on the line until the item closes. Public Works, anything further to add? Is there anyone from the public that has anything they would like to add to this item? Please step forward to the microphone and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Doris.
Put the mic to you. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Doris, and I'm currently 17 years old and a senior at Galileo High School, as well as a resident at 1501 Quinn Street. I'm here because I want to oppose the removal of the trees on 1501 Quinn Street. Sorry. These trees are really important to me, even though it's kind of funny how trees can be important, but my mom planted these trees when I was still in her belly, and these were the seeds that she ate from her apple. And when I was in 5th grade, I had a cough that lasted 2 or 3 years, and I went around trying to find medicine. I went to the doctors, I went to my pediatrician, I went to herbalists, but no one could. It just seemed like it didn't cure. But then we went around, and they said that the fruit from the loquat trees and the leaves, and when you made a soup out of it, it could like cure your throat, especially with your sinuses, I think. And I drank that, and for after a few months, I just magically healed. And not only this, but it also helped my family and people who are close to us. And this fruit is actually pretty rare to find in San Francisco, and and even if you do find it, it's actually really expensive, and it's really hard to afford, especially in the neighborhood I live in. And because the Bayview is in such a food desert, and it's really difficult to find food without traveling far, it's really beneficial for us to have these trees right in our backyard that we can just pick. I'm sure that the Palu Street Improvement Project is very important and may or may not create the change we need in this community, but from the research I have found, I don't think that it's necessary to cut down these trees just for this project, and that I'm pretty sure that people in our community do oppose this cul-de-sac because I have people drive me home all the time. No one's confused about how to take me home, and people know. Our neighbors they've seen this. They've gone to hearings, and none of them agree with this and think that it's a good idea. That's basically it.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? State your name for the record, please.
My name is Josh Klipp. I just want to acknowledge how much guts it took for her to stand up and ask for that. And also, I would like to say, we're going to have a lot of design projects that are coming up in front of you tonight. And I would just like to challenge everybody in this room who has any power to control those to start working on projects that incorporate our natural environment rather than cut it down and start all over again. Our world is not in a position to continue to be doing that. We need to keep as many healthy, established, mature trees in San Francisco as possible. We already have the worst canopy of any major city in the United States. We cannot afford to keep doing design like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please step to the mic and state your name, please.
Hello, my name is Bill Bulkley. I hope I can make my speech now. I'm the landscape architect on this project. I work for Public Works. I know it's a little out of
Yes,
depth.
go ahead.
Thank you. I don't want to address the issue with the caller about his public information. That's an issue. But in terms of the overall project, it is a safety project. However, we also are planting over 100 trees, more trees than we're taking out. So we're 100 more trees to the project. The cul-de-sac design, there's a very large fear that people are not even going to respect that, or they're going to blow through it either on purpose or accidentally. And so that ring of trees is actually a very precise barrier, including a whole new ring of trees, bollards, streetlights, and groundscape planting. So it provides another area of security so that cars might not jump the curb to get through that five-way intersection. So the safety of the intersection is greatly improved by making it a four-way, and this circle of planting is that barrier. And by doing that, for ADA access, for 6 feet clearance minimum for a new project, was the reason behind that. So we weighed keeping that planting there. It's a very beautiful little garden. It is in the public right-of-way. This is a higher benefit, I believe.
All right, so is those additional ring of trees you talked, could they have been shown in this little design here that they're not included in what's currently on the screen?
Yes, so
I see the 5.
they were talking about that
The horseshoe.
horseshoe. Those
Right.
are individual trees. So each one of that is an individual new tree.
And you mentioned additional trees and bollards.
Then in
That would be a
between each one of those trees is either a bollard or a pedestrian light. So that in itself makes a bit of a barrier between
I see.
the trees and those structures for cars to know that they can't go through there.
I see, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you,
Okay.
thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Kathleen McCowan. In an effort to resolve some of this, my understanding is that while 6 feet are preferred, the law only requires 4 feet, and it might accommodate these trees, or at least relocate them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this matter? Does the appellant, are you still on the line, sir? Do you have anything further to add?
Thank you for making the call-in line. I wish I could speak about the slides and the other trees today, but I can't because I don't have access. Thank you. And my name is Zach Carnazes. Thank you for letting me speak. I hope disabled people can be included more in the future.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. If there are no further speakers to this item is now closed. And we will now proceed with item number 1, 202515, which is the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1367 14th Avenue. Public Works staff.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is order number 202515. To consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1367 14th Avenue. Our Bureau of Urban Forestry, we approved the removal and the public protested. This is the strawberry tree in Arbutus at the property, shown here in the slide, 2 images. You'll see on, in both these images, both photos, that the tree has a canker, which is kind of in a way, kind of an area of decay or a dead zone kind of within the trunk of the tree. What we have found when this species has such cankers, as shown here in the photo, that they have, or we can expect the tree to have a 100% mortality rate. You can see the tree is already forming cracks within that canker area. The wood there is becoming brittle and dried out. In the canopy, there is dieback. The applicant applied to our bureau to remove this tree on their own. They're not relying on resources from Public Works to remove it. As far as our own maintenance and responsibility, Public Works would be responsible for this tree, but it's a future planned area where we're going to be there in the future. So the property owner came to us in advance of our planned maintenance schedule. So they're acting with kind of some foresight. They want to remove this tree and get it replaced so that a new tree can start to grow here. So again, they applied for a permit ahead of our key map maintenance, planned maintenance. This is the arbutus shown. You can see the full canopy here. It's very thin. And here I've outlined where there's been a lot of dieback in the crown. So to be consistent with other cases, we approve this for 15 days with a 15-day posting. We received a written protest from the public.
Thank you. Is the property owner or appellant here to speak on this issue? Is the property owner or appellant, anyone here to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Public Works wish to add anything else? Okay, this item is now closed. Thank you. We'll now move to item order number 202517, to consider the removal of 4 street trees with replacement in the Sunset Boulevard median across from 1691 37th Avenue.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is order number 202517, to consider the removal of 4 street trees with replacement in the Sunset Boulevard median, approximately across from 1611, 1691, 2101 37th Avenue. We approved the removal of these 4 trees, and we received protests from the public. And I apologize if these slides are a little difficult to see. So in the Sunset median, Public Works, along with the PUC, has worked over several years to come up with and design rain gardens to harness the stormwater and capture stormwater here along the medians. A lot of time has been spent on the design of these rain gardens that will be implemented in the Sunset Boulevard median. And they tried to place the footprint of these rain gardens so that large mature trees would be preserved and protected. So the 4 trees we approve for removal are within the footprint of those rain gardens, and the grading of these rain gardens will impact the health of the trees, and that's why we approve them for removal. So this is one tree. It's a very small cypress. The designs from the rain garden took into account large mature trees. Again, during the multi-year design process, rain garden footprints were shifted or moved to avoid grading conflicts. This is a very small tree we approved, and there is a plan for Climate Action Now, which is a nonprofit organization, to plant 240 small replacement trees and other shrub vegetation to infill the median. And this is just another view of that small tree we approve for removal. This is a second of the 4 trees. It's a stump that has sprouted out. It's a pittosporum. As you can see here, that stump has put off a lot of shoots, so it's become kind of like a small tree or a very large shrubby vegetation. Again, this is within the footprint of one of the proposed rain gardens, and its health will be impacted by the grading changes and elevation changes made here. And then these are the 2 last trees of the 4. These are approximately across from 2101 37th Avenue. These are 2 small, medium-sized pittosporum trees. And again, they're within the footprint of the proposed rain garden, and the grading changes will impact the health of the trees. This is just a zoomed-in view from that last slide, looking at that cluster of vegetation. To show you which ones will be removed and which trees will remain. You may wonder, well, it looks like they're kind of like all together in this clump. Why can't they be worked around? The ones that are remained, they're a little further back and kind of are on the edge of the rain garden footprint, so the grading changes won't be as damaging to those trees as the ones that bookend this slide. So just to summarize again, through the design process, Public Works tried to, and they did move a lot of the locations of the rain gardens so they could preserve and accommodate a lot of the large mature trees in the Sunset median. And basically it comes down to these 4 that have to be removed because of the grading changes that will impact these trees' health.
Thank you. To any property owner or appellants that wish to speak regarding this item, please step to the mic and state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is Mary Tinkin. I'm from the PUC. Can I pull up my presentation?
Oh, yes, okay.
Hi, so Sarah mentioned green infrastructure, rain gardens. I just want to make it very clear that we're planting, or we're going to be constructing 28 rain gardens in 12 different blocks. All of those will serve to remove more than 4 million gallons of stormwater from our joint sewer system, and thus that water will go to recharge the water table, to sustain plantings in and around the rain gardens, and generally to be available for the planting of future trees that have by climate action now. We worked very hard with Public Works staff to locate the rain gardens in places where there aren't existing trees. You can kind of see that in this slide, the bright green, there's sort of a shadow green, which is where the canopies of the existing trees are, and we've tried to locate the rain gardens in places where we wouldn't impact large trees. We held many community meetings to discuss our plans with the public. And then in each of the 3 locations, so here you can see it's very light. There is a pipe that will move water from Lawton Street to a rain garden sort of over on the right-hand side. We've placed the rain garden in such a location that it avoids the 2 very large cypress trees, but the pipe will be cut next to that very small 2-inch cypress tree. Here's at the other end of this same block, closer to Moraga Street. The rain garden is the hatched area. It's been
Go ahead.
It's been there's a minimum sizing requirement, and which is what the footprint that you can see, which includes both the basin as well as the grading that will hold the water. And so we've preserved the very large, again, another cypress tree, but this one pittosporum has to be removed.
You're speaking as the property owner, right? Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and so similarly here, these are at the edge of the grading zone, and we've tried to place the rain garden as close to the edge, the west side of the median, to avoid other larger trees. You can kind of see that in the plan as well as in the aerial.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to speak regarding this item, please step to the mic and state your name for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Hughes, and I'm a resident of the 1600 block of 37th Avenue. I'm opposed to the removal of the 4 trees on the Sunset Boulevard Greenway near 37th and Moraga. These trees help to capture the rainwater and to reduce the rainwater runoff problem naturally. Is this working? So here's, here's a shot of one of the trees. Here's the one that you just showed. The trees are more than 60 years old and have survived years of drought and neglect due to the broken sprinkler system. I have images of that area when it was same location, very lush, very green, and that shrub, bush, tree is a direct descendant of the one in the first picture. All the trees in the Sunset Boulevard Greenway should be protected and revered. Please allow these trees to continue to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Oh, there we go. I'm Kathleen McCowan, a homeowner at 44th Avenue in Terraville. I speak for both our families and for many of my neighbors in opposing the proposed tree removals on Sunset Boulevard. We Sunset residents' biggest concern is that such ad hoc removals of large mature trees may become a precedent for the removal of many more of our trees during the extensive Sunset Boulevard restoration project. During the Department of Public Works outreach to neighbors in Sunset Boulevard, we were repeatedly assured that no trees would be cut down to accommodate rain garden construction. One DPW staff member commented, or the neighbors would be up in the arms, which you're seeing. In Supervisor Marr's District 4 report, he notes that Sunset Boulevard is a biodiversity hub and a critical greenway, not only for our neighbors, but the entire city. However, he expressed concern that yet last year, twice as many trees were removed as were planted, reducing our canopy by nearly 2,500 trees. The trees pictured here on Sunset at Quintara are slated for removal for the official reason of installation of restoration plantings surrounding Sunset Boulevard Rain Garden. For other trees in Lawton are as well. This flies in the face of the assurances we residents were received from the DWP. These are big, mature trees, as you can see from the 6-foot man standing next to them. One tree labeled 100% dead, this one, has an ample canopy, and an experienced gardener said the tree is not dead. There's ample area for a rain garden without proposed tree removals. For perspective, a smaller sized area at Sunset and Wona is shown with a complete rain garden. Additionally, a very large established Monterey cypress is immediately adjacent to the construction site. Its root system may well be at risk from the proposed rain-based construction unless it is better situated to the west. These are iconic trees in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item? So please step to the mic and state your name.
So, good evening. My name is Lance Carnes, and I was reviewing the website that DPW has that shows trees that are on the dock for being removed. This one caught my eye because there's so many trees on Sunset Boulevard, 2,605 trees. About 2% of our whole canopy is on that one strip, and they're going to remove 4 trees. How do you choose which 4 you're going to remove? So. Anyway, so the way you protest is you go to this sfpublicworks.org and you look for the link for tree removal notifications. So I sent my protest in, and I don't know if you can read this, but it was dated December 25th, 2019. And I said, I protest. And I got a note back from DPW saying, oh, sorry, your protest came in one day after the deadline, 26. Turns out their email server was adding 8 hours to timestamps. I did try again, and I said, the posting end date is actually 12/26, 30 days from the posting date of 11/26. They wrote back and said, we count 11/26 as day 1, making 12/25 day 30, which is pretty bizarre. So anyway, so there's some improvements Buff could make on their website, their removals website. One is to compute start and end dates correctly, because they're going to nail you for them if you're late. Provide a link to the tree info report, which I have to do separately now to go to find out which species and the history of the tree. And also indicate if the tree will be replaced, which is also an important thing. Here's a little spreadsheet I developed that actually scrapes all the data out of the DPW removal website and puts it into a little thing. You can find it online at sf4all.org. look for SF trees, and then you'll see a link for removal notices archive. And it goes back to the beginning of this thing in middle of November. So anyway, do you have a look at that? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Yeah, just Josh Clip, a few quick questions here. If we're removing a large stature tree, why wouldn't we replace it with a large stature tree? Certainly here, of all places where we have the space for it. I'd also like to note that despite the PUC being required to comply with Article 16, which requires a one-to-one replacement, in the last 10 years, the PUC has taken out 475 trees and planted only 39. In terms of a rain catch, trees are one of the greatest forms of a natural rain catch. In 1 year, 10 mature trees can siphon off 250,000 gallons of water away from our combined sewer system. And not only that, but they act as natural humidifiers and put moisture into the air, which reduces our increasingly hot temperatures. My final question is, why are the replantings being paid for by a nonprofit when the PUC is the one taking them out? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Yes, sir, please state your name at the mic.
Hi there, my name is Jonah McCallion. I'm a neighbor, a resident of the 1600 block of 37th Avenue as well. And actually the tree on 1611 is just right across the street. And just a correction, I think it was said it was like a 2-inch circumference, but it's actually more like the thickness of my leg, which probably is more like, I don't know, 20 inches or so around. So it's a pretty healthy tree. And overall, my concern, I'm not against rain gardens on the surface of things, but when you're removing healthy trees in order to accommodate them, that gives me great pause, mostly because I see that the aftercare for a lot of the trees, or for some of the trees that have been planted, whether it's by the nonprofit or some other organization, I don't know if it's the PUC or not, has been rather poor. So we have trees that have been brought in to replace healthy trees like the one that we're considering here, removing here, that just aren't getting the aftercare they need in order to thrive. So there's some issues there that need to be ironed out between the neighbors, the PUC, and DPW as well. So again, not necessarily against a rain garden, but I would request that the rain garden accommodate the healthy trees that are there instead of the other way around. The one thing that's missing here, I guess, is sort of an overhead on what the rain garden would look like if that tree were removed. It was kind of maybe too far away. I would like to see that and potentially work with I'm sorry, what was your department? The PUC, to figure out a better design. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
My name is John Nolte. I used to be a resident of the Sunset, and I did walk down Sunset Boulevard for a number of years and seen that these trees are still surviving, and they survived the drought. I don't see why they should be removed at all just because of a rain garden. I think this is just a gimmick of the PUC and at the cost of the trees that are healthy in San Francisco. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? All right, does Public Works wish to add anything in addition? No? Does PUC wish to add anything?
I'd like to spend a moment just talking about the benefits of this project. Again, you know, each of these rain gardens will remove 100,000 gallons of water from the sewer system itself each year. The energy, the manpower out at our treatment plants, the Oceanside treatment plant that's associated with the 4 million gallons per year that will be removed is significant. Second of all, as one of the speakers said, there are more than 2,000 trees out here on the Sunset Boulevard. We're removing 4. We've worked very hard to try to avoid the mature trees of stature. As Sarah showed, 2 of the trees that, respectfully, 2 of the trees are fairly small. One, unfortunately was cut to the ground and has been resprouted and isn't in the greatest of condition. And so we've tried to aim at, to save the best, the biggest, even the medium-sized trees, and we're removing a very small portion. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is now closed. We'll now move to order number 202519 to consider the removal and transplanting of 23 street trees with replacement adjacent to 1925 and 1940 Evans Avenue.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is order number 202519 to consider the removal and transplanting of 23 street trees with replacement adjacent to 1925 and 1940 Evans Avenue due to the major grade changes that need to be made to the road between Toland and Selby. Grade changes need to occur along Evans, adjacent to the traffic company and forensic services building, adjacent to 1998 Evans Avenue, and also adjacent to the Homeless Navigation Center at 1925 Evans Avenue. 6 of the magnolia trees are adjacent to 1925 Evans Avenue, and 17 trees are across the street, primarily adjacent to 1940 Evans Avenue. The transplanted trees will be dug up, moved temporarily, and replanted in the neighborhood. Replacement trees will also be planted on Evans Avenue. Urban Forestry, we approved the removal of these 23 street trees, and the public protested. This is a slide, an overview of the 23 trees that were approved for removal for the required grade changes. You can see here the 6 on the left side of Evans and the 17 on the right side. They are all southern magnolia trees, and they are all in, good, fair condition. There aren't really any significant defects or deficiencies to point out or speak of. They're established trees. They're somewhat adolescent trees. They still they haven't reached their full maturity, but they are established. Here, I'm sorry, I don't have a pointer. The trees on the left of the 6 proposed for removal, they're in the background. There are 8 there that were already approved for removal and transplanting. They're adjacent to the construction area. So kind of this approval model is going to follow that same project, where these will be removed, dug up by the contractor, held in a storage, and then made available to Bureau of Urban Forestry to be planted in the neighborhood. And then additionally, replacement trees will be planted here along Evans after the construction, after the grade changes are made. So these are the 17 southern magnolia trees. And these are just real quickly photos of the trees. This is maybe one of the smallest ones shown here in this first slide. Again, I don't have anything as far as deficiencies or defects to point out. These are mature, established trees. They're in good, fair condition. There's really nothing wrong with them. So I'm just going through these slides. And then these are the 6 on the other side of the street. And this is from the project management team. The project will address drainage issues in this low-lying area that they've been facing for decades. The right-of-way on Evans between Tolan and Selby will be raised approximately 0 to 3 feet, varying along the block. So that's a significant grade change for these trees. The project will also include tree planting, street and pedestrian lighting upgrades. The project is also in coordination with the sites I mentioned, the forensic site and the navigation center. The trees, we're saying they're gonna be transplanted, meaning that these specific trees, the 23, they will be removed by the contractor, so dug up, stored and cared for, and then they will be made available to urban forestry to transplant into the neighborhood. So Public Works would be responsible for looking for 23 sites to put these trees at in the neighborhood. Urban forestry in conclusion, we approve these trees for removal based on the dramatic changes in grade along this street improvement and where these 2 construction projects are taking place. It would be very unlikely that the trees would survive this kind of dramatic grade changes.
I have a quick question. So the replacement trees, have you decided what type of trees? Will they be the same trees?
I'd say likely they would be the same species, Southern Magnolia.
Southern magnolia, okay.
It's possible there could be proposed different species. The loquat does well here, but to be probably consistent with what is on Evans, all the way to 3rd Street and east of 3rd Street, it would probably be Southern Magnolia.
All right, thank you. Is the property owner appellant here to speak regarding this item? Any property owner or appellant to speak regarding this item? No? All right, anyone from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Yes, sir, please step forward and state your name for the record.
Josh Klipp, I protested this removal when the only information I had was that a navigation center was going in and the trees were coming down. I protested it because these are some of the only healthy trees left along this entire corridor after the PUC cut down 24 trees there last year, and also they plan to cut down dozens more. This is a corridor that is incredibly industrial, endures heavy semi-trailer truck traffic, features iron smelting and wastewater facilities. The air there is terrible. And now we're going to put our homeless people there, and we originally proposed to cut down just about every single tree. On top of that, I believe, and Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, that these trees were part of a 9/11 memorial planting. I'm glad to see that the city has now agreed to transplant rather than kill the trees. What I'd like to know is whether this transplanting will be supervised by a certified arborist and be performed by a contractor who has any sort of experience doing this type of work. I understand it's a very sensitive, delicate process. I think Sarah talked briefly about Buff looking for locations. I would like to know if once those locations are determined and the trees are planted, who's going to take care of them? Because after that sort of removal and replanting, they're going to need some specialized care. And finally, is this transplant practice something the city would consider in other projects where trees may be transplanted rather than taken out, as developers are currently doing all over San Francisco? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Public Works, like to add anything more?
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. I will just confirm that Josh's statement is correct, that these were trees planted for 9/11 memorial. So I think that consideration plays a lot into why we want to transplant them and show them the greatest care during that process.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right, this item is now closed. Thank you. We'll now move to order number 202-520, to consider the removal of 8 street trees with replacement adjacent to 5 properties along Gary Boulevard between Scott Street and Gulf Street. Public Works staff will go first.
Urban Forestry, Sarah Stacy. This is order number 202520 to consider the removal of 8 street trees with replacement adjacent to 5 properties along Gary Boulevard between Scott Street and Gulf Street. The application was submitted by the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency as part of the Gary Bus Rapid Transit Project. And for your point of reference, these trees are adjacent to 1301 Gulf Street, 1500 Gary Boulevard, 1795 Gary Boulevard, 1599 Steiner Street, 1901 Gary Boulevard, and 1415 Scott Street. I will just start as a point of clarification that the project, their intent is to only physically remove 3 of the trees here I'm going to show. They, though, submitted an application to remove 8 if they foresee that construction will impact these trees. So should the contractor have to cut roots or shave roots, that would jeopardize the stability of the tree's health. The tree will be already approved for removal, and that decision will already have been made to address these trees. So again, just to clarify the project, they foresee their construction only impacting 3 trees. They applied to 8 in the chances that the construction will impact 5 of those other trees. They don't think that's likely, but it's kind of just in case.
So the other 5 are contingent? Is that basically
Contingent.
what you're saying?
Yes.
3 are going and 5 are
Correct, yes.
iffy. All right, thank you.
So this tree here at 1301 Gulf Street, it is planned to be preserved on their construction documents. It's a London plane tree. This is the species that is kind of the choice species, the signature tree along Gary Boulevard. There are several London plane trees all up and down this corridor. So this is one of the contingent trees. It's a mature, large London plane tree in fair, good condition. And this is just another image of that subject tree. And another image of it. This is a tree at 1500 Gary Boulevard in the median. This is one of the trees that will be impacted by construction. So it has been approved for removal. The project anticipates that they will need to remove it. And their proposal for it is based on the installation of a new pedestrian refuge here in the median. Basically, this tree needs to be eliminated for that pedestrian refuge to be implemented here. And someone from MTA will follow me and speak to the design process behind that. This is another London plane street tree at 1795 Gary Boulevard. Again, in fair, good condition, no major deficiencies. The London plane trees can start to look a little like they're in poor condition towards the end of the fall as they start to defoliate. And they also get kind of a fungal disease, anthracnose, so they can start to look kind of crappy towards the end of the season. But this tree we assessed in good, fair condition. It's another one of the contingent trees. Here at the block of Steiner and Gary, this is the south west corner of Steiner and Gary Boulevard, where the pedestrian crosswalk overpass comes down and lands at this corner. The tree at the tip of this red arrow in the slide is proposed for removal and approved for removal. And then the 2 trees where there are the 2 green arrows, those are contingent trees, and they should be preserved during construction. How this pedestrian ramp comes down and meets grade, it kind of circles and spirals down. And in that spiral, there is a alder tree, and it will have to be removed for construction. So that is the 3rd tree proposed and approved for removal. And then I'm just going to flip through some slides of the trees at this area of Steiner and Gary, where the pedestrian ramp is located. This tree here just behind the crosswalk signal is the one that would be impacted by construction and buff approved for removal. This is a close zoom-in shot of the trunk of the tree. This is an alder. Not a very common tree in the city, but does well here, as you can see, kind of at the perimeter of the Reckon Park property. This is the cluster of those 3 trees. Again, the tree on the far right is the one that will be impacted by construction, and the project will preserve the 2 trees towards the left. And these are just some other photos of the 2 trees on the left. These trees are all fair, good, healthy condition. This is the tree furthest to the left here where there was a past failure where a limb split off. This could be considered, one defect, but I would say it doesn't play into the stability of the tree. We wouldn't consider it hazardous. And this is the tree there in between the ramp area where it spirals down. It's enclosed within that area. And a zoomed in picture of the base of the trunk. And finally, this is a London plane tree here at 1415 Scott Street. Again, a London plane tree in good, fair condition. This tree, as marked on plans, will be preserved and is another one of the contingent trees. And this is just another image of it. This London plane tree is in good, fair condition. So just to summarize, we approved 8 trees for removal in anticipation of this process and hearing. And 5 of those 8 being contingent trees, should construction have to cut roots or shave roots, that would jeopardize the stability of those trees. They could move forward and remove those. 3 of the 8 trees will be impacted by construction. I'll let MTA speak a little bit more about the design process and why those have to be removed. Thank you.
Have you decided what the replacement trees might be? Same London plane, what would they be replaced with? The 3 that will be removed?
In the median, I'll let MTA speak to that, the replacement plan. I don't think they'd be London plane trees.
They will consult with you, though, for the... All right. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dan Mikowski. I'm the project manager at MTA. And so I work on the Geary Rapid project, which is transit and pedestrian safety improvement project on Geary between Market and Standing Street. We're also coordinating with some other utility work. And so I wanted to talk more about the 3 trees proposed for removal. And the replacements to get to that. So the first one was the median one. I think that's where there might be some questions. Could I use the overhead?
Yes, please.
And so at this location, there's a new pedestrian crossing planned. Some of the blocks on Geary, Geary was constructed in the 60s, and some of the blocks are really big. This one's 900 feet long. And a lot of people will cross mid-block here. This is by the Japantown Peace Plaza. And so one of the things that the project is building is a new pedestrian crosswalk with a new signal. And it would have some artwork and other things. And if we look here, actually, I should back up 1 second. So when we were designing the overall Geary Rapid project, during the environmental review, there was a lot of trees proposed for removal. And we've kind of worked through the detailed design to kind of get this down to 3. So each of these 3 I'm going to talk about, we've considered a lot to look at alternatives. So right where these people are standing in this picture is where the current tree in the median is. And based on that location, that's kind of where our curb ramp for accessibility and people walking comes into the median. And that's why the tree is proposed for removal. And in this area, the replacement trees, per the request of the community, were cherry trees, which are smaller than London plane trees. And so that's the proposal. There's 3 proposed for removal and 19 new. Of those 19, 8 are London plane and 11 are cherries. So that's the median. That's this cypress on the median. The other 2, Sarah talked about a lot. One of the reasons that, so there's 2 trees there. There's one in the corner, the large poplar, and then there's one in the spiral that, oh, can you go back to the one on, and so that pedestrian bridge is proposed, will be removed by the project. It will be a new, safer pedestrian crossing, and once that spiral ramp is removed, there's a lot of concrete foundation underground. The tree in the middle is on the top of that buried foundation, and so we see no way to be able to keep that one, to work around that one. The one at the corner, this is a good one. The one at the corner with the red arrow has a decent amount of lean, and we think it's being supported somewhat by that underground concrete structure of the spiral, and that even if in the future there's a proposed pathway that would go to the corner, even if we redesign the pathway to go around it, it seems like we couldn't safely maintain this tree. And I think those are all my comments.
All right, thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak regarding this item?
Given how many trees we're talking about here and just the sort of breadth of the reasons for taking them out, can I please have 3 minutes just to go through all of the research I've done on this and make my educated objection?
2.5? No, I'm just kidding. 3 is fine. Go ahead.
It's usually 3 in this hearing, so I was a little surprised to hear 2.
Go ahead.
Anyway, thank you. I appreciate that. Regarding the 5 trees, we're essentially seeking sort of what was it called, a contingent permit. Public Works Article 16 does not actually have any provision that allows for a contingent permit when there is construction happening, and if that is to be issued in a case like this, then I would say that we might look for every developer in San Francisco to start looking for the same thing. Article 16 is actually designed to protect trees during construction. Regarding the tree in the median for the crosswalk, I definitely understand the spirit behind it. This tree is a 28-inch DBH tree in very good condition, which appears to take up roughly 1/3 of the median's width. So if you kind of do the math, you're talking about a median that's maybe around 90 inches wide. So if you take out 48 inches for the required width of an accessible path of travel, now you've got roughly 42 inches left, which you divide that by 2, which means you've got a buffer of maybe less than 2 feet of this sidewalk that's going to be running down the middle of the median. And so you've got your senior citizens, your children standing in this basically middle of a median with Geary traffic flying all around them. And then when you land on the north side of Geary, there's no accessible path of travel from the end of that crosswalk to Japantown for anyone with mobility limitations. Or when you land on the south side of the Geary, it appears that the crosswalk drops you off between two driveways. So while I understand the sentiment, I don't understand that this is something that is particularly utilitarian, let alone something that warrants the cutting down of a very healthy, large Monterey cypress. Regarding the 2 trees at Geary and Steiner around the pedestrian bridge, I can understand the need for removal of the one in the middle of the spiral. For the one that is outside of the spiral with a 25-inch diameter, what I'm not understanding is if it's already doing so well on a concrete slab, why can't it continue to do well? Trees grow in difficult circumstances and certainly on rocks all over the world. I'd also like to know what has been done to design the new sidewalk around it and incorporate the tree rather than cut it down, since it is such a large, healthy, rare specimen. Also, I understand that this may be overlapping with Rec Park that manages the property there. They have a 2-to-1 replacement goal, which they've never met. So it's unclear why they wouldn't want to do everything to preserve this tree, or at least agree to a biomass replacement formula. Finally, regarding the replacement trees, 11 of them are cherries. I understand the historical significance of these, but understand that these are small, typically short-lived trees when planted along public rights-of-way. If the city wants to honor the culture and heritage of those trees, it could put as many as it wanted in planters and planter vaults, rather than put them in approved tree basins that could hold larger stature, carbon sequestering, climate change tolerant species. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item?
My name is John Nolte. I have a history with the 38 Geary BRT. I was part of 4 people that stopped the BRT when it first started in the Tenor line, and we put back the bus stops. So they're coming back second round here, and this is the final phase, and it's already been sort of approved. But you know, again, it was a court. It was back then. It was also the court, the horse before the cart. It's the same issue here. You come and telling us what to do, but you really don't tell the community, and then afterwards we have to deal with the issues that arise because of your how you want to do it, construction-wise. I was in that neighborhood for 3 days doing the Western Addition survey that I personally did. I only found, out of those 8, only 3 were actually tagged that I could find, and those were the 3 that were at the on the Steiner Street location. Also, as pointed out, the cherry trees are abundantly around the Japantown, and I think more statured trees should be in there because a year or so ago, the city came into Japantown and took out all the trees, a bunch of the trees in the what do they call it, inside of Japantown, because they were coming to the end of the redevelopment agency's control of Japantown, and so they took out the trees because they were assessed, and so they put in new trees. So I think that they have to think about, again, because of our changing environment, that we need more better trees than cherry trees being put into the street wells in San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Public Works.
Urban Forestry, Sarah Stacy. I'll just give the remarks that the project, the contractor will be required to protect those 5 trees, those 5 contingent trees. Protection specifications will be required during construction for those. That's to say, while that tree is protected, the project during their construction process could come to us and say, you know, based on the sidewalk pouring, plans here, how we're changing things, the contingency plan is that, like, if a root has to be cut or so much of the tree roots have to be shaved that the tree would become unstable, they already have the approval to remove the tree. The tree is still protected during the construction process, per the Article 16 of the Public Works Code.
Okay, thank you. Sir, MTA, have anything you wish to add to this item? State your name.
Thank you. Yeah, Dan Mikowski. Thanks for these good ideas, and I'll look into them. Thanks.
All right, thank you. This item is now closed. We'll now proceed with order number 202521 to consider the removal of 9 significant trees on private property with replacement by St. Francis Home Association.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is order number 202521. Yerba Buena. This is to consider the removal of 9 significant trees on private property with replacement by the St. Francis Homes Association. The trees are along Yerba Buena Avenue and St. Francis Wood, between Santa Clara Avenue and San Pablo Avenue. The trees are located between the sidewalk and the street. St. Francis Wood is kind of a unique entity in San Francisco where the trees anywhere back of curb are on private property. So they're classified in this case as significant trees. Where you might see a street tree back of curb in another area of the city, and it's a street tree because there's a portion of the public right-of-way. Here, all these trees are on private property. So within the first 10 feet from the curb, they are protected as significant trees, and therefore do require a permit for removal. So the project did a early walkthrough with one of our inspectors, and they looked at 27 trees. And basically through that, the outcome of that walkthrough was that they selected 9 trees to proceed with applying to remove that they needed a permit for. And these were the worst trees of those 27 that they made an inspection of. And that's what we will be reviewing here, those 9. These are eucalyptus trees. This is in front of 10 Yerba Buena, basically the property address of 55 Santa Clara. The red arrows here point to where the eucalyptus was previously topped. And as certified arborists, we know that when trees are topped, the after effect is that this tree becomes susceptible to a lot of decay forming where those wounds are made from the pruning cuts, the topping cuts. And these become areas where the tree is weak and there's likelihood of failure at these points. This is 21 Yerba Buena. You can see here where the tree has kind of thicker stems and then they become thin, very thin and spindly. We would say this tree has low crown ratio. It's kind of lion-tailed. It's very thin all the way to the top, 10% of the tree. It doesn't have a lot of interior foliage. And those branches have a lot of swaying motion, and there can be a high likelihood of failure of those limbs. This tree was also previously topped, so again, another point of likely failure where those branches can fail. This is the same tree, again, pointing to those previous topping cuts, and you can see where the tree put out those sprouts, and then they've grown there. This is in front of 31 Yerba Buena. Again, kind of the same deficiencies pointing out here again, previous topping cuts, and then the tree has put out these shoots that have grown over several years. And all the tree's foliage is at the very top of the tree. There isn't a lot of interior foliage to damper the wind load. And these kind of long limbs with all the foliage at the very end and we know they can be susceptible to failure. This is 44 Yerba Buena. Again, the same defects, topping cuts, previous topping cuts, and likely decay at those points. So the arrows, again, just point where there could be we are saying a likely point of failure. This is 51 Yerba Buena. Again, the same defects. The tree was previously topped. You can see here where the limbs are thicker and then they become thinner as those sprouts emerge where the previous topping cuts are at. And this is just a zoomed in view where there has been a previous failure, a branch failure here pointed out on the left, and also on the right there. In the image here on the right, a limb fell on that silver car and caused property damage. This is 90 Yerba Buena, tree 1. Again, all the same defects. The trees have been previously topped. You can kind of see where those stems are thicker and then they become thinner where the new shoots grew out of those topping cuts, and that's where the branches have a likelihood point of failure. This is tree 2. And this is 100 Yerba Buena. Again, all the same species. These are all eucalyptus. Again, topping cuts here. You can see where those shoots emerged from the topping cuts. Again, these kind of are long branches with all the foliage at the very end. There's a lot of swaying motion and not a lot of interior foliage in the tree to damper the wind load. And just again, those areas where the topping cuts are made are a point of weakness in the tree where we expect there's a likelihood of failure. This is 125 Yerba Buena. Again, same defects. Again, same thing here. Again, just previously topping cuts. The tree is susceptible to failure point where these topping cuts were made. So just to summarize, Public Works went out with the community and they looked at several eucalyptus trees, 27. They selected the worst ones to apply for a removal permit for, and they applied to remove 9 of the worst ones. Public Works, when we say likelihood of failure, that doesn't mean it's imminent or we're not saying 100% this is going to happen, but there is a likelihood that we can anticipate a limb failure within 1 to 3 years. That's what that means. And so for those reasons, at the staff level, Urban Forestry approved the removal of these 9 significant trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a property owner or appellant to this item? State your name for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Paul Hill. I am on the board of the St. Francis Homes Association, and I am the chair of the Parks and Parkways Committee. So I'm not really here to defend the request for removal. I'm here to defend the process for how we got there. So when I came back onto the board 2 years ago, almost immediately, we had 2 catastrophic limb failures on Yerba Buena. We had a tree at 150 land on a house, large branch came down. It took us about 6 months to actually get that tree removed, but that tree was determined to be removed. And then a tree branch hit a garbage truck, and we are currently in a lawsuit with Ecology regarding that tree branch. So after those 2 moments happened, because I was now in charge of the arborist group that was taking care of the trees. We had all of the trees pruned, so that was all done in March of 2018. In 2019, we had a large branch fell on a house at 160. A branch fell on the front steps of a house at, I don't remember, I think it was 44, and then the one that just landed on this car at 51. Because of an incident that had happened with the way we had pruned some trees on another street in the neighborhood, the Bureau of Urban Forestry issued a fine, and so we were working with them to find a new arborist. So we found an arborist called Arborist Now, and I asked them to review the trees on Yerba Buena for pruning. They instantly said there's some that we're concerned about, so we set up a meeting with their arborist, Remy Hemmer, and then Walter Levison, who happens to be here for another project, but could speak to this if you need him to, and 2 arborists from the Bureau of Urban Forestry, Chris Buck and Susan Nobre. And so along with our landscape manager, the 6 of us walked and looked at every tree. Because someone had planted an idea in my head that maybe people requested that trees, or arborists had trees removed, or the tree companies had trees removed because they made money off of that, I have separated the company that removes trees. They are never in the process for determining whether a tree is removed. The company that actually makes money taking out a tree is not part of that. Arborist Now gets about $2,000 for every tree of ours that they pruned. We just spent $35,000 on the 19 remaining trees 18 remaining trees. They did those just this past month. They did a great job. So we walked through, we looked at every tree. It isn't just that they were topped. You know, this was work that was done in the 40s. And so for 80 years, we have managed to keep these trees going. And, you know, I love them. They are great trees, but they are becoming dangerous. So what we looked for is not just topping. We looked for places where the actual body of the tree was weak, where there were cracks in it, where there was fungus in it, anything that determined whether they thought that tree was not going to survive. So that is why they picked these 9 trees, which we posted. So if there were a way to save them, that'd be great. But these 4 people felt that they should come down. I am not an arborist. Trees are not my specialty. I am a visual effects producer. My job is getting people to do things, so I hired people. If there are more arborists we need to talk to, great. But the reason why we had picked these 9 trees is because we felt they needed to come down.
So you're in support of the removal? Is that
I am
what I'm hearing?
sadly, I am in support of removal, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would wish to speak? Oh, sir, Mr. Levinson, do you wish to speak regarding this item? I'm actually here to speak on the branch street project. Okay. Yes, sir. Please step forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Rolf Benduski. I'm a resident of Yerba Buena Avenue, 136. And we protested the intended tree removal, but these trees needs careful and professional pruning, not removing. While there are some branches in the past came down, it would not have happened if they have been regular pruned in 2018, 17, 19, but the association always procrastinated. These 9 trees they are mentioned, there is no immediate danger of hurting anybody, but yes, they do need professional pruning, careful pruning, and there will be always new sprouts coming out from the existing previous pruning, and I'm happy for that. And for that, I photographed here these trees here we have on Yerba Buena Avenue. Oh, is that working?
Yes, sir, you're on.
Maybe in the middle. That is tree number 22. That is next one here, tree number 85, 100 Yerba Buena Avenue. And tree number 82, 90 Yerba Buena Avenue. And tree number 83, 90 Yerba Buena Avenue. There are 2 trees in front of that building. And tree number 82, also on 90 Yerba Buena Avenue. And there is 3 more, tree number 96, 51 Yerba Buena Avenue, and tree number 72 on 44 Yerba Buena Avenue, and tree number 99 on Yerba Buena Avenue, and tree number 101 on 21 Yerba Buena Avenue. These trees need to be careful pruning, but not cutting. That would be, and silver trees have been removed from our association in the past 2 years. They have never been replaced. There are still, you can see the area. And with my previous speaker here, Mr. Paul Hill, I told him to walk by these trees. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I even had a 2 o'clock appointment today with him, but nothing happened. Either he missed the appointment or something else. He got the wrong information.
Right.
But
Yes,
these
sir.
trees
Thank you,
should
sir.
be saved and carefully pruned, and they will not become a danger to anybody in particular. And that could have been avoided a previous incident on 150 Yerba Buena, where one branch came down in the middle of the night, if they had it pruned, that one
All
branch.
right, yes, sir, thank you. We understand.
Okay.
We get you. Thank you
Can I
very
leave
much.
these items here with?
Yes, you can. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item, please step to the mic and state your name. Ma'am, you can come up. And then right after her, you can come up as well, sir.
Hi, my name is Yvette Wong, and I live.
Bring the mic closer to you. Yeah.
My name is Yvette Wong, and I'm a resident in the St. Francis Wood area as well. I live on Yerba Buena Avenue. So I just wrote up a little something. Every day, St. Francis Wood residents, neighbors, children, dog walkers, bikers take Yerba Buena Avenue to cut through the neighborhood, go to the neighborhood parks, or walk to nearby schools such as Reardon High School, City College, or West Portal Elementary School. Commuters also park on Yerba Buena Avenue to walk to the West Portal Muni Station. On Halloween, the neighborhood is known to be frequented by thousands of trick-or-treaters who roam through the streets. Last year, there were 2 significant windstorms that caused large tree limbs to break off and fall on our street. The limb that fell on our driveway completely blocked our cars from getting out of the driveway and was humanly impossible to move. It took 3 men 2 hours to break up the limb with an electric saw, a sharp axe, and a FJ Cruiser SUV to haul away only parts of the limb that blocked the driveway. 311 took care of the rest. And I can show you what that looked like.
Yeah, projector.
On October 24th, the limb that fell from the tree in front of my neighbor's house completely totaled her SUV. Lucky for us, the limbs fell before 5:30 a.m., and fortunately, there was no one on the street at the time. Our tree has already been removed. However, the tagged trees still loom ominously over our neighborhood, especially my neighbor's trees on 51 Yerba Buena. It scares us to think that if the limbs were to fall any later in the day, someone would have been severely hurt or dead. It could have been any one of us or our children, as our children and my neighbor's children often walk to school or walk the dogs in the morning. It also scares us that it will only take another wind or rainstorm to blow down more limbs. These trees are indeed beautiful and have given the neighborhood its character during its healthy days. We respect the historical presence of these trees, but in present times, many residents fear these trees are disease and hazardous. My neighbor and I feel strongly about removing the additional 9 trees because we can't imagine the damage or fatalities these large disease limbs could cause if they were to fall on any car or pet, children, passerby, senior citizen that live or come through the neighborhood. And we need to prevent any more damage and keep everyone safe.
Thank you.
And I do have some pictures.
You can submit them if you want to. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak? Yes, sir. Please step to the mic and state your name. Thank you.
Hello, Lance Carnes again. I found this listing on the DPW Buff webpage for these things. I guess what jumped out at me right away is that there seem to be numerous properties, and I pulled the permit, and all I got back was the application, but it looks like there's 9 trees, and from what I can tell, there are 8 homeowners at these addresses. But the attempt here was to take the 9 trees, they gave the site address is 44 Yerba Buena, and the owner name is St. Francis Wood Homes Association. It seems to me that each of the 8 owners that have the trees in front of their homes are the owners, and they should submit a separate application for each tree they want to remove. I think I discovered also why they might have done that is that if you want to remove 1 tree or 2 trees or 3 trees in front of your home, it's a $400 fee. If you want to do 9 trees that are on your property, it's $1,072. So this is 8 homeowners, 1,072, it's about $134 each, whereas if each homeowner had to do it on their own, it would be $400. And I think, it's not a small amount. It's actually, the city is really desperate for money to plant new trees in not just this neighborhood, but all around the city. And I think that, I'm surprised that DPW accepted the application as it was written. And I would recommend that they send it back and have each homeowner to apply for the removal. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak? Just a second. Anyone from the public, sir? We will call you. Please state your name for the record, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Nolte. This is a picture of Yerba Buena and Carla Avenue with the trees lining both sides of the street, which nobody seems to want to show all the trees that there are, and since they made a point of 27 of them. Next, this is the tree in front of 21 Yerba Buena. And then this is the tree in front of 51 Yerba Buena Avenue. My issue is that I grew up in Forest Hill Extension and then has seen hear all these problems they seem to have with the trees when my trees on my hill were planted at the same time, basically by Sutro. So to hear that the wind is going to do all this damage and so forth, I think it's the issue of what I hear about pruning. The trees that were in my neighborhood, they weren't pruned at all. So and they were on private property because each lot was private property. So to hear that there's a problem with these trees, and I grew up in the neighborhood, and I know people in that neighborhood, and I actually walked to Reardon High School because I went to Reardon High School. I didn't have to go look up in the sky and say, oh, that tree's going to fall on me. So, to hear all these statements that trees are hazardous, I haven't had them yet, and I've gone under hundreds and thousands of trees in my lifetime. Not one has fallen on me. And the odds are 1 in 1 billion and 100, 1 in 10 million that a tree will actually fall on you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Sir, I think you already spoke, so, yeah. Thank you. Sir, before you respond, does Public Works have anything else they wish to add?
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. I don't know if it's helpful for me to just point out again that these trees are significant trees, and what that means is that they're trees on private property. So the liability for any damage these trees cause to property or persons is the responsibility of the property owner. So St. Francis Woods has to decide as an organization or association what kind of liability they're willing to take on, what risk do they want to take on. And they've decided that, through the process of looking at 27 trees, they evaluated and looked at the worst ones and applied to remove those. I think that was a fair way to go about looking at how to manage a whole group of trees in their neighborhood while preserving some and removing the worst ones.
All right, so what, have you decided what the replacement trees would be?
That would be discussed with the area inspector and, approved through that process.
All right, thank you, thank you. Yes, sir, you may now step to the mic and address.
Paul Hill from the St. Francis Homes Association. I just wanted to address that permit issue. So as the Bureau of Urban Forestry said, our trees are different than every other so-called street tree in the city. Our trees belong to us. The the planted area between the street and the sidewalk is St. Francis Wood property, and it belongs to that. So the city has never paid to maintain, has never done anything to these trees. The city has had no involvement with these trees for 100 years. They've been managed and taken care of by the Homes Association. We spend about $300,000 a year on maintaining our mature trees. When we met with DPW, traditionally, when we've had to ask for a removal, we pay the single-user removal tree. When we ask for it, we pay the full price, the $400 that it is now for a tree removal permit. Since we met with the Bureau of Urban Forestry and walked this whole street with them, they were the ones that we recommended that we use the full block treatment, since it was our property. So that recommendation to put them all on one permit and only pay the $1,100 or $1,200 that we paid for that permit was a recommendation from the BUF. It was not something that we were doing to try to save money. So just wanted to address that.
All right, thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, you may step up and speak. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, Rolf Benduski, Yerba Buena Avenue. I just wanted to mention our association, they have the obligation to do regular professional pruning, and that was not always done. So they could have avoided these breaking limbs 2, 3, 4 years ago if they done regular pruning, but they didn't do that. And there was negligence in the highest degree from our association. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. With no one else from the public to speak on this item is now closed. Thank you. We'll now hear order number 202522, to consider the removal of 4 street trees with replacements adjacent to 833 Bryant Street.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is order number 202522, to consider the removal of 4 street trees with replacement adjacent to 833 Bryant Street. The Bureau of Urban Forestry denied the removal of the 4 trees, and the applicant appealed our decision. I'm going to show you slides of the 4 red maple street trees adjacent to this property at 833 Bryant Street. The applicant applied to remove these trees for their proposed construction project at this site. We denied the removal. We want to really not so much encourage, but require construction projects to their greatest degree, work around trees, preserve them, and protect them during construction so we can maintain these assets and help green San Francisco. So these are the 4 red maples. They're young, established trees. I wouldn't describe them as mature. They're all healthy and good condition, good fair condition. They're established in an area that is, I would describe, very urban. We need trees here. The fact that these trees have gotten established here, despite a lot of vandalism in this area, is one of the reasons we want to see these trees preserved and protected and kept. This is tree 2, one of the red maples. No major defects. A little bit of damage to the cambium, which is the outer part of the tree's bark. Damage to this part of the tree can cause decline in the tree, especially while the tree is young, but we didn't see this as a reason for removal. This is tree 3 along the site. Again, these are in good, fair condition, no major deficiencies really to speak of. And then this is tree 4, the last red maple. Again, just to summarize, we want to see these young established trees preserved during construction. The applicant didn't prove to us that they couldn't be worked around. So I'll leave it to the applicant to really explain why they can't be worked around. Thank you.
Thank you. The property owner or appellant may now speak. Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Sharon Kristen. I work with Mercy Housing California. We're the sponsor of this project. I'm joined by Lisa Court from Fletcher Studios, our landscape architect, and Walter Levison, our certified arborist.
Hi, I'm Liza Court, representing Fletcher Studio, the landscape architecture team on the project. And I'd like to briefly describe our current plan, which has been updated more recently than requesting this appeal. So I'll fit it on the projector in portions. Do I need to press something to make this? Okay, there we go. So, sort of looking at an overview, this is an affordable housing project with 3 street frontage zones. Boardman Place on the screen left now, Bryant Street, and Harriet Street on screen right. And the 4 trees that we're requesting to remove are located along Bryant in this strip. We have updated the plans in consideration of community feedback, requesting more trees on the site, as well as developed coordination with our civil engineer and utilities teams on the project in order to fit more trees along this frontage. We believe, based on our assessment of the arborist report, that the 4 trees shown will be at great risk during construction. The building plans provide a range of roughly 9 to 12 feet between the level 1 building wall and the front of curb, with an additional approximately 4-foot overhang at level 2. And so the scaffolding required to install that will encroach on the existing trees' branching canopy space. And by removing them, we will be able to fit 7 new trees along that Bryant Street frontage, in addition to 6 new trees split between the Boardman Place and the Harriet Street sides.
Excuse me, say that again. 7 trees on Bryant
It will be 7 trees along Bryant Street,
and on
3 new trees along Boardman Place, and 3 new trees along Harriet Street, for a total of 13 trees in the public right-of-way. And that is in addition to approximately 300 square feet of planting area, where we can fit it in the public right-of-way while maintaining a minimum 5.5-foot public accessible through zone. So just to wrap up, our goal regarding canopy is to provide the healthiest and fullest tree canopy experience possible, and we believe that by removing and replacing these trees with 13 new, we will come closest to achieving that goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Walter Levison, consulting arborist, independent consultant working on this project. When I reviewed the 4 trees along Bryant Street in June of last year, 2019, I was wasn't really even considering the construction, but the first thing I saw was that they were red maples, and I knew that, okay, here we have Acer rubrum. These are East Coast, United States native trees, not necessarily appropriate for, I would say, the San Francisco Bay Area. I know they're planted quite frequently and used extensively in San Francisco, I know, but in my professional opinion, I don't usually recommend them just because they're accustomed to a high moisture summer rainfall type of a climate. So I figured, well, these aren't really appropriate in my opinion for this site. So that was one strike against the trees in my mind that went towards my recommending removal of the trees. The second thing that I immediately noticed was that they were chlorotic and appeared to have symptoms of both chlorosis in the foliage and also drought stress related to soil moisture deficit. So this was related to, of course, the 6 or 7 years of California drought from about 2010 to 2017. These red maples don't necessarily work too well in droughty conditions. So they were suffering from drought, and which was to be expected. They seem to do better on heavily irrigated lawn settings along the peninsula on some of my clients' properties. I've seen in Atherton, Menlo Park, where they're heavily irrigated multiple times per week. So these trees have been stressed for quite some time, and we're showing symptoms of that. And the chlorosis is an issue of typically the soil being of too high a pH in the Bay Area. That's quite common. The red maples are more of an acid-loving type of tree that's more accustomed to an acid soil with a lower pH. So I think the chlorosis that those trees on Bryant were experiencing it was probably due to the too high of a pH. So in my opinion, I don't think the trees are really appropriate for the setting, so I am recommending that they be removed. And in addition to this, the construction, of course, involves replacement of both the curb along Bryant Street and the sidewalk along Bryant Street. So those two, the demolition of the existing sidewalk and curb and the reconstruction of new sidewalk is going to, in my opinion, be requiring extensive work that is going to damage the root zones of those trees in such a way that they would be compromised either structurally or in terms of their health. So that was a great concern, and that typically does cause severe damage to trees on construction projects. And oftentimes you have to cut water, of course, if there's any irrigation that has to be shut off during construction, so that's an issue. So the trees get even further stressed. As far as any other construction impacts, there are some utilities being trenched in from Bryant Street into the property southward into the new project. So that's another additional impact that would negatively affect the trees. And also the exterior window glazing, the way that it's currently proposed, jets out to the north into the Bryant Street kind of sidewalk frontage, street frontage area. So there's very little space there for the trees to be maintained with their canopies the way they are sprawling currently. So you've got all of these different issues, sidewalk, curb, reconstruction, the exterior face of new buildings facing Bryant Street, and the fact that these trees are East Coast water-loving trees that are accustomed to a humid environment with high rainfall in the summer.
Have you recommended trees that would replace these trees? What types of trees?
The Fletcher Studio, which is represented by Eliza here tonight, has proposed 7 new plantings of Magnolia grandiflora Little Gem, and I believe that is the same cultivar that's going to be used on Boardman Place in Harriet as well. So there's a total of 13 Magnolia grandiflora Little Gem that would be installed on those 3 streets bounding the property.
All right.
Plus private trees that are inside the private area of the property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is it Lisa Fletcher? I have a question for you, please. So the magnolias that were proposed, has there been the 13? Are you guys setting aside the actual planting space for these trees along the curb? I mean, the streets, Bryant, Harriet, and Brewer. Is that part of the plan? Is that shown here? What you put up there?
Yeah, we have located them on our plans. The canopies are reading faintly, but I'll indicate the trunk locations. This dot with MG indicates a Magnolia grandiflora location. So there's one here, 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 and these final 2 along Bryant.
Right.
And we're showing them in tree wells, which I believe are 36 by 40 inches, and the diagonal hatch there indicates unit pavers, which are to be kept clear because there is parallel parking along that street, so that is the 24-inch courtesy strip between the trees. And we're also showing those trunk locations with these 3 dots along Boardman Place in planting area in this case, since there is no parking. and on the Harriet Street side, where we have a narrower sidewalk, we're again showing tree wells but no planting, but these 3 trunk locations are shown.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Please step to the mic and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Josh Klipp. I've been a volunteer planting leader with Friends of the Urban Forest for over 11 years, and having planted around 700 to 800 trees on our streets, I understand how hard it is for a street tree to establish. It is incredibly difficult, especially in these very urban settings, and I am so tired of developers coming in here and saying, we need to take these trees out for construction, but don't worry, we're going to plant a whole bunch later on. My guess is that this is not what they told the planning department when they submitted their plans for review years ago. We take a look around, our city has a pathetic canopy, and new construction is happening everywhere. Developers make this promise every time, and tree removal for construction is only going to get worse. SOMA itself has the smallest percentage of any canopy of any neighborhood in San Francisco. It takes 3 years for a tree to establish despite the odds. How old are these trees? How long is this project going to take? At what point will the new trees be replaced? 5, 10, 15 years from now? The San Francisco Department of the Environment says we have 10 years, now 9, before climate change cannot be reversed, and that we as a city must sequester more carbon if we want to meet our climate goals. And that's what trees do. And regarding red maples, now I'm actually concerned about this too, because this is the primary planned replacement species for the 24th Street removal, where the city plans to take out nearly 50 trees in 5 blocks. So if we're going to start taking out trees that were impacted by the drought or may not do well in this climate, we might as well start clear-cutting most of the trees in San Francisco. I respectfully request that these trees be permitted to stay and that the applicant be required to find a way to design them into the design and construction plans rather than just cut them down.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening. My name is John Nolte, and I've worked with Mercy Housing for a number of years, and they have a poor record of planting, maintaining, and keeping up their trees, canopies around their properties. I live a couple blocks from a new one that just was put in, and they're already dying. So I really take case to Mercy Housing. I saw what they've done in the Tenderloin. They destroyed the trees that they put in there. I mean, it behoves me to hear them say that they want to deal with these trees in South of Market. Also, I try to find the project for this property, for the supposedly went that might have gone to the planning department. I couldn't find it. I did find it on their website. So the other issue is planting, because we're only talking about the trees that are on Bryant, but here they're talking about the other corners of the property. Well, those are by DPW's rules. I mean, the planning department's rules have to be put in anyway. So basically, all we're hearing is the net gain of what's going on Bryant Street from taking off the current 4 and putting in 7. Well, I think I rather would keep the ones that have lived through a drought versus hoping that they would live not live during the construction. And also, I believe again, since they haven't started construction, they should be protected during construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? No? Does Public Works have anything they wish to add? No? Do the property owners appellant have anything they wish to add? All right, seeing that this item is now closed, we'll now move on to order number 202523 to consider the removal of 12 street trees with replacement adjacent to 35 Division Street and 2 Henry Adams. Thank you.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is order number 202523 to consider the removal of 12 street trees with replacement adjacent to 35 Division Street, also known as 2 Henry Adams. Bureau of Urban Forestry, we approved the removal of 2 trees in which the public protested these, and we also denied the removal of 10 trees and the applicant appealed. So this is the subject property, and I'll try to explain this slide a little bit better. The trees shown here on Division, there are 5 there, and there are 7 trees on the other frontage of the property. And the applicant applied to remove all 12 trees. We denied the ones on the other frontage, and we only approved the 2 here shown where there are red X's on Division Street. And we approved them for the installation of a PG&E vault that has to be placed there. And through this construction, the trees would not be likely to survive the impacts of that construction and don't necessarily meet the guidelines for the required distance away from that vault in the future. So these are the 2 Tristania trees on Division Street that we approved. These trees are healthy and good, fair condition. They're established trees. They're doing a lot for the urban forest. But Urban Forestry, we approved these 2 on the Division Street frontage for the construction of the new vault there. And this is tree 2 that we approved. Again, another Tristania street tree, a young adolescent tree, but it is established. Again, approved for the construction of the PG&E vault at this corner area of the property. This is tree 3 that we denied for removal. We would like to see the tree preserved and worked around during construction. And this is all along Division. This is tree 4. We would like to see this tree preserved. And then finally, tree 5, another Tristania street tree along the sidewalk here. We would like to see this tree preserved. This is the Vermont Street frontage of the property, and there are 7 locusts here. They're all in fair condition. This is a deciduous species, kind of like the red maple. It will drop its leaves to foliate during the fall. They are also an East Coast tree. They're not really common in the city. That's not to say they're not planted, but we don't have very many of them as street trees. I would say generally they look like they're hanging in there. They're in fair condition. I wouldn't put it at the top of a list of recommended species necessarily, but these are in fair condition, I would assess. And we denied these. We think they should and can be worked around during the construction improvements this property is making. And I'll just show some pictures of each of the trees. This is in the order with the property to the right side. This is tree 2. Tree 3, very small. This could almost be an in-kind replacement if it is approved. Tree 4, tree 5, a smaller tree, tree 6, and tree 7. All the same species here along Vermont Street. On the Vermont Street frontage, we denied all those, and the applicant is appealing our staff decision. This is the Henry Adams Street frontage, and just an example of how a tree could be preserved and maintained for the kind of construction and grade changes that the project is proposing here. And I'll let the project talk a little bit more about that, but perhaps this could be a way the trees could be preserved and kept on Vermont and Division, with the exception of the 2 we've proposed for the new PG&E vault.
Do you have pictures of the 2 by the PG&E vault? I'm sorry, I must have missed those.
These are the first 2. They're trees 1 and 2 on Division. They're Tristania, And these are the two we propose for the vault. Tree 1 and 2.
Thank you. Is the property owner appellant here to speak regarding this item? Hi. Please
evening.
state your name for the record.
My name is Caitlin Brady, and I represent RMW Architecture and Interior. We are the architects for this project. I wanted to just go through a quick overview. This is our site. I'll be talking about Vermont Street, which is on the left, and Division Street, which is seen at the top of the plan. And this is in correction for the plan that was shown earlier. The street trees are along the southern side, plan south side, and north side. We had an arborist look at these trees. They're approximately 20 years old, but they're growing in undersized planters. And they're also growing slowly due to inadequate root space, and they have a lack of water. New, properly planned and cared for trees should be able to reach these sizes in about 5 years after planting, and this is per the arborist report. Ben Anderson of the Urban Forestry recommended removing all of the subject trees and improving their growing site, and replacing them with new trees that could be well cared for from the beginning, and that's what we plan to do. So I'll just run through some of photos showing these are the conditions at Division Street. You can see, as mentioned, the trees that conflict with the new PG&E vault, a new sewage lateral. These trees are planted too close to the curb. We're providing new upgraded sidewalks, and these would be unlikely to, in their current poor health conditions, survive the new construction. The same for this tree. Tree E, we took the city's recommendation and we plan to preserve it. Overall, in this area, we are turning the gravel parking lot, which is adjacent to these trees, into a public plaza with regraded accessible plaza sidewalk, new drainage, new seating, new greenery. The new trees would be much more likely to survive in this condition. We're removing 4 and proposing 6 new trees. And this is a voluntary improvement. These are the current conditions at Vermont Street. You can see that the planters are just kind of within the sidewalk paving, and the trees are starting to grow out of those. More significantly, we're trying to fix a grade issue. The existing slopes on the site range from 5% to 8%, and you can see the significant slope change from the building to the curb, which is highly inaccessible. We're looking to fix this condition with a 2-level, like tiered sidewalk. So you would have the lower sidewalk, which would be for pedestrian access, car access, and then there would be more of a loading zone that would serve the building. The existing street trees are currently located so far off the curb that they would obstruct pedestrian circulation here, and we want to make sure that it's ADA accessible. So that's why we're proposing trees with adequate planters, but they're moved a little bit closer to the street line so that we can get pedestrian access through the space. And this will just show in red where those current planters are, and then you can see our proposed street planters. They're a little bit more spacious, but also provide both tree.
Do you propose the gray ones at the bottom?
Yes, you can see the gray ones right here with the black trunks, and then the red ones are where the current trees are. And so this kind of shows the different cross slopes. We're trying to mitigate an 8.6 cross slope here, 7.7 at this tree, 7.6, so these are significant slopes. The canopies are also, the trees are planted too close, they're in poor condition, and these planters are just, they're too small. This is kind of the same condition, spindly and contorted. The urban forestry map has called out most of these as poor condition. The arborist said fair to good condition, which means it's reduced vigor in their growing. Again, 6.1%, 5.8% slope at these trees. So we're proposing a new accessible split sidewalk with 8 new Brisbane box trees, and they'll include a new irrigation system and more space for the tree canopies to flourish, which would include a 20 to 25-foot tree spacing. And again, this is voluntary, and the owner is just trying to provide a more accessible space for the public. Ultimately, our project, you can see the trees discussed tonight outlined in blue. And then the trees mentioned earlier, the ones in the street are the dark green at the bottom of this image. Those are actually trees which are within the existing streetscape and cars just park around them. But all of our trees for proposed removal would be on the sidewalks, and then we're also adding some new trees into that what is now a gravel lot. It's going to be a public plaza with planters and trees and a green wall. So ultimately, we're looking to just remove trees that are in poor condition because we are trying to add in infrastructure to support healthy growth. And we anticipate equal or greater coverage 5 years after planting. And this is all just for public benefit and to create more accessible pedestrian walkways. 14 new per the trees discussed in this presentation, but overall 27 new trees proposed on this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to submit the arborist report, and then we have a summary created by our landscape architect.
Hello, my name is Claire He, and I'm with Link Engineering. I'm the civil engineer for the 2 Henry Adams project. So I just want to add like a couple things to what Caitlin just said. So as you can see on the drawing, on Vermont Street, like as the photo shows, the existing existing cross-slope on the street is about 5.6% to 8.6%. So in order to provide the ADA accessible sidewalk, the grade changes near the existing tree trunk will be like almost 2 inches to 5 inches, which has like the high potential to damage the tree trunks and the tree roots. And also the existing trees are only approximate like 3.4 feet from the split sidewalk, which is not enough for the accessible minimum 4 feet path of travel. And also one thing I also want to add on, the tree spacings in between the existing trees are only 13.8 feet to 15.4 feet. As required by the urban forestry, these tree species need a minimum 20 feet of tree spacing in order to provide enough healthy tree growth. And for the proposed condition, we will provide the ADA accessible cross-slope 1.67%, and also 4.7 feet of path of travel, and also around 25 feet of tree spacing in between the proposed trees. And the tree trunk, so the tree trunk will be 4 feet times 8 feet, and that will be sufficient for the proposed tree species to grow healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone from the public wish to speak regarding this item?
Again, if I request 2.5 minutes.
No, go with 3, Josh. No problem, sir.
Okay, here we go. So, Josh Klipp, the proposed trees as part of this plan aren't a kindness, that's a regulatory requirement because the applicant is adding more than 500 square feet to their building, which triggers tree planting requirements. And the 20-foot planting space only applies to new trees, not established ones. By way of background, I'm an attorney, but I'm also a certified access specialist, or as architects know me as a CASP. I'm one of less than 1,000 people in the state of California authorized to give a professional opinion on ADA accessibility in the built environments. Pursuant to a public request, I received and reviewed the file in this case. With respect to the vault installation along Division, first note that half of this block has no trees at all, which may allow for unobstructed conduits from the public right-of-way to the property's transformer area in places other than where the trees currently live. but there's no evidence that the applicant followed the city's vault placement schedule or that they were even asked to consider it. Had this happened, the option of placing a vault in a different location might have been reviewed. As it stands, the applicant has already begun construction at this location with zero tree protection in place and has potentially already injured these trees by failing to protect root zones and using large equipment within these trees' drip lines in violation of Article 16. With respect to the trees along Vermont, which, by the way, are the only trees on either side of this block, the trees the applicant seeks to remove are ostensibly for ADA reasons, but the applicant's own documentation indicates tree removal is not necessary. It's just their preference. These sidewalks are 16 feet wide. The California Building Code only requires 4 feet of clearance, meaning the existing sidewalk is 4 times wider than what the law requires for accessibility. The applicant knows this and was offered the option of a split-grade sidewalk, which would have not only allowed the trees to stay in place, but would have also allowed for their planned additional green and permeable landscaping. They didn't want to pursue this, however, out of fear the city would push back because it wants the maximum amount of sidewalk. If they were genuinely concerned about this, they might have contacted the Mayor's Office on Disability and sought an opinion, or hired a CASP, like me, and figured out what was compliant and/or a best practice. What is especially ridiculous about the applicant's concern regarding a split-grade sidewalk is the fact that they already have a split-grade sidewalk along the entire eastern side of this exact same building. The applicant's reasons for wanting to remove 70% of the trees on this property, coupled with his failure to examine alternative, seek expert opinions, or even protect the trees while beginning construction, demonstrates a flagrant disregard and a lack of concern as to whether these trees live or die. The applicant's disregard for trees is even more apparent when one realizes that the applicant has, for decades, skirted tree planting requirements by putting tortured-looking trees not in the ground around his property, but in planters where they cannot grow to any sort of maturity and will eventually die from being root-bound. Additionally, it is ludicrous the assertion that these trees should be removed because they weren't cared for, but don't worry, we'll replace and take care of the new ones. I respectfully request this removal application be denied in whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Overhead, please. Good evening, hearing officer. My name is John Nolte. I am concerned that the permit is premature. The hearing for the 2 Henry Adam 2013.068 9 CU and 203.1593B is going to be heard this Thursday in front of the Planning Commission. And here is the agenda right here. That's the first issue. Then down here we have the street plan that is proposed, and it doesn't talk about anything she just referred to for the Planning Department to approve this project. Next, we have the Sanborn map for the square block, and as was stated, this is the 2 streets that they are trying to take out the trees. This street, there were a minimal amount of trees spaced the way they're spaced, and this is a mess on this side because of the way they planted the trees on this side. Then we have, within the packet, talks about putting in 4 trees right here, which would be on the Vermont side, and I don't think that's how many she showed you right a minute ago. This is for the Planning Department, by the way, Commission. Then I took my own pictures. This is the Visadero side of the property. As you can see, the water from construction, and that's right here. And then you have all the trees, and these would be the trees on this right here that we removed. And then from across the street, again, this would be the 2 trees right here, and here's the line of 5 right here. And then this gets better. These are the 7 trees that are on the Vermont side, and they got the porta potties right next to them. So that's what speaks for the how they're dealing with this property in construction phase, and they haven't even gone for the Planning Department yet to be approved, and they've already got all the stuff that they've done.
premature to gain their passing the planning commission's approval. So I find that this is very blatant of the law, starting to do a project before you even have the approval from the planning commission.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item?
As Urban Forestry, Sarah Stacy, I'll just provide a comment that I believe the spacing on Vermont is a little narrow or tight. I want to acknowledge that, and that may be why some of the trees are smaller and are suppressed there. That's not necessarily a good reason for removal, but I do acknowledge that some of the trees are suppressed there because of the poor spacing. I would ask the applicant to maybe state here what size tree they're willing to plant, what size tree they're planting or proposing to plant as a replacement, what size?
You referring to the replacement of the two that the vault?
So where the PG&E vaults are proposed, there won't be replacements there. So as far as replacement trees or new trees, one or the other, replacement and new, what size tree will that be?
Well, it's been denied though, right? The other 10 trees have been denied the removal.
Should they be approved through this process, I'm asking the applicant to state here what size tree they are proposing to plant. Thank you.
All right. Applicant? Yes, please state your name once more.
Hello, my name is Claire, and I'm with Link Engineering. I'm the civil engineer. So I would like to comment on the location of the PG&E vault and also the ADA compliance on Vermont Street. So first, I'm going to comment on the Division Street PG&E vault. So we did study the location of the PG&E vault. So as you can see in this drawing, can we show the mouse? You know what? Can I go there and point out?
Yeah,
Okay.
please. Ma'am, speak this way. Speak to me. Yeah.
So regarding the accessibility on Vermont Street, so I would like to show you the current, I would like to show you the current grades at the building and also the current grades at the sidewalk. So as you can see, the current door elevation here is 16.27. And I'll go down a little bit. You see currently the curb at this point is 14.82. So that's almost a 1.5 feet change within 16 feet, which will yield at like approximately 8.6% slope. There is no way that we can provide a maximum 7.5-inch curb and having the ADA accessible slope of 2% maximum to going to 16.27 at the building entrance. So that is the reason we are proposing a split sidewalk at this location so that the pedestrians can travel safely to the building, and also on the lower level of the sidewalk, the pedestrian can also walk safely on the lower level. So these are the main reasons we are proposing the split sidewalk. It's not, and that's for the sake of the public pedestrians to travel near the area. And also, I would like to add on, the existing tree well is only 3x3, and the proposed tree well is 4x8. So as you can see, it's much larger and much enough space for the trees to survive. Thank you.
Thank you. And is someone going to address the question about the size and type of trees for the replacement? Yeah.
Can we have the Word document we provided to you earlier? So all the sizes are provided in the Word document we just submitted to you. Yeah.
Okay, there's the slide. Which one?
Yes, I think that's the one. The other one. Yeah. Yes. All the sizes are shown in this document.
Yeah, she's just stated for the record, though. Could you please come up to the mic and state it?
Hi,
Hi.
Caitlin Brady, RMW Architecture and Interiors.
All right.
I would have to read it from that document.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so we currently have 4-inch swamp myrtles, and then a 6-inch swamp myrtle, and then honey locusts on the rear.
Size of the honey locust? Do you have?
On the rear, it varies from 6-inch honey locust through 8-inch. I guess it's 8-inch through 3-inch honey locusts on Vermont Street. I'd also like to comment in response to the porta potty comments at the rear of the site. Those are provided for a separate, non-related interiors renovation project. So that's unrelated to the construction for the trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Public Works, do you have anything further to add?
Urban Forestry, this is Sarah Stacy. Our area inspector will need to visit the site and just follow up to address whether there's a lack of tree protection or not. That's something we should follow up on.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
The lady from DPW asked the question, what would be the 10 trees replacement? And that's not what was responded. And that's what the question was. She wanted to know the replacement of the species.
Right. Is that?
No, that's not what she said. That she's talking about what was there now.
Yes, please step to the mic.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. While the applicant pulls up this information, it was clear to me the response that they provided about the size of trees that would be replaced. I got enough sufficient information here to understand, various size trees varying from 4 to 8 inch DBH would be the replacement size for this species.
Yeah,
planted back
3
here.
to 8 inches.
So I was clear on that. I can't speak to what was unclear, so maybe just another summary again, and that will clear everything up. Thanks.
All right.
Caitlin Brady, RMW Architecture and Interiors. In terms of replacement on Division Street, which I think the question was directed, there will be 3 swamp myrtle on the streetscape, and then a future 3 ginkgo balboa in the plaza.
Sarah Stacy, does that work for you? Are you clear? Yes. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. If there's no more public comment, this item is now closed. Where am I? Lord have mercy. We will now proceed with order number 202524, which is to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 4363 26th Street.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is order number 202524 to consider the removal of one street tree replacement adjacent to 4363 26th Street. The Bureau of Urban Forestry denied the removal and the applicant appealed. This is the southern magnolia tree, a mature established tree adjacent to the property where there's new construction proposed, a new driveway. The tree's in good condition for urban conditions. Our staff loves to go out and find a tree like this in such great shape, well cared for over time. This is an image the area inspector drew up to show how he thinks the driveway can be accommodated and worked around the existing tree, an offset driveway, so kind of in a way Bureau of Street Use and Mapping, who oversees these site improvements within the public right-of-way, they would give a variance or in a way approve this offset driveway so that the tree can be kept. This is a plan view of that offset driveway, showing how it will kind of be at a diagonal in order to avoid the impacts to that street tree. Some just other images of the tree. You can see some sidewalk damage in this photo from Magnolia. It's fairly common. Our stance is the city, because it's our responsibility, we often want to repair that damage several times before we would consider removing the tree. So to be consistent with other cases, we denied the removal of this tree for construction of the new driveway. We're proposing that they do an offset driveway and that be approved so that this established healthy southern magnolia tree can be kept. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a property owner appellant here? Yes.
Hi.
Hi. State
Travis
your name.
Murdoch. I'm the owner and resident with my family at this property. So it's worthwhile gaining some context because we've been in planning for over 2 years. We went through 10 plus cycles with RDAT, including a discretionary review to get this project approved, which is an addition and vertical addition to the home for our family, which is growing. We have an 18-month-old and another baby on the way. And what's very apparent through this process is that no one had ever mentioned, can I just show it here?
Yes.
So just showing the approved plans, right, that we we clearly stated to RDAT that we're planning to remove this tree. You know, we went through multiple reviews, and nothing was ever mentioned about it. And you know, the plan is obviously to replace it with another tree. And the fact is that, you know, now we're sort of 2+ years in. It's very clear if you look at the photos that were shown that, you know, that replacing the sidewalk here, and I'll show you some more photos, is going to likely significantly damage the tree. The previous owner previously had replaced the sidewalk before, so this tree has damaged sidewalk on multiple occasions. My daughter actually tripped on the sidewalk recently and cut her face open, so, you know, it's not something that I'm particularly excited about. Here's another photo just showing some of the damage that's been done. One of the things you can see is that it's actually planted quite high, the tree, and so, you know, our sense, talking to contractors and others, is that, you know, this is going to be very problematic trying to do a curb cut here. And just a couple other images showing, you know, the length of damage that this tree is causing to the sidewalk. You know, I'd ask that you consider its removal. This has been a pretty arduous process for our family already to get our remodel done. And frankly, you know, I think there's a very high chance this tree is damaged during construction, given that we are doing a vertical addition and a bay window that's in very close approximation. And frankly, I can't see a way that the root system of this tree is not going to be damaged by construction.
Right. If the removal were hypothetically, what size and type of replacement are you talking about? Because you mentioned replacing the tree.
Sure. I mean, I would take you know, I would take the lead of the folks here. I mean, we want to obviously replace it with something that you know, is accretive to the neighborhood. We're going to live there for a long time. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Public Works, anything to add?
Something the area inspector hasn't done yet, this is Sarah Stacy with Urban Forestry, is to assess the appraised value of the tree. And I only mentioned this in regards to a similar case where our staff denied the removal of a southern magnolia tree. At this subject property, it was a larger magnolia tree, a little bit, its trunk was larger, had a larger canopy, but removal reason was the same for a new driveway. We assessed the appraised value, and this case went as far as Board of Appeals, and the outcome of that case was that the property owner was willing to pay the appraised value on top of meeting their requirements for either paying an in lieu fee because there's not room to plant a tree, or planting the required tree for their construction project. So I'm not sure if I'm asking for the applicant to acknowledge whether they would be willing to pay the appraised value, or, you know, should the process go to Board of Appeals, like, to what costs are you willing to pay to remove this tree and not work around it?
A quick question. What type of tree is currently there now? Do you know?
This is a southern magnolia tree.
Southern magnolia. Thank you. Do you have anything you wish to add?
How much did it cost, frankly? I mean,
Urban Forestry, this is Sarah Stacy. This case, again, it's case by case. In this other subject property, the tree was larger. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how much larger, the difference in DBH. But I think this tree that exists here has more value than our in lieu fee, which is basically $2,000. So the appraised value, you know, could be anywhere from, say, $3,000 to $6,000. I'm not sure if it would be $10,000, but that would be the kind of amount I'm talking about, somewhere between $3,000 and $8,000 for the appraised value of removing this tree and losing the value of it due to the construction.
Understood, which is why the appraisal would be.
We would want
Would be
urban
necessary
forestry at the
first.
level we'd
Right.
want to do an assessment of the appraised value.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah, I mean,
State your name again.
Travis Murdoch. I just want two things for the record. One is, I think there's I know there are a lot of problems with the way that we plan new residences and remodel residences in the city. This was a particularly shocking one to me, that we could go 2 years with RDAT and no one mentioned that this would be something that would bite us at the end after all that review. So insofar as you can work for coordination, it would be something I'd really appreciate, because we, the design was dictated by RDAT, which included the, moving the driveway in the way we did, and this was how we ended up where we did.
And who's RDAT again?
RDAT is the Residential Design Advisory Team. So they, they do all they essentially tell you what your facade can look like, and frankly, our neighbors who've remodeled also moved their driveway, and so, there's a consistency that they wanted. So that, that's what drove us to where we are now. I mean, we're in a 2-bed, 1-bath, is 4 people on the way, and so if it's this something that I need to pay to move my project along to make sure that I have a home for my family, that's something I'll do. But obviously I want to be a good citizen here, but I don't feel like it's something that frankly was that I'm at fault for. But if that's what the team decides, then we'll have to assess the cost and see if it's something that we can afford.
All right. Yes, inspector will, I guess, revisit the site. Okay, thank you. Any public comment on this item? Seeing no further public comment, are there any public comments on any of the items on the agenda? That is, if you've spoken, if you came in late, or when an item you wish to speak about has already come up on the agenda, this is the time to publicly speak on that item. If you've spoken, you will not be allowed to speak again. This is only for those who might have come in late or did not have a chance to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak on any item that's already gone by? Seeing that there's no more public comment, this hearing is now closed. Thank you, and good night, everyone.